facing the ghosts of the past with a gesture life. And I do not live in broad infamy, nor hide from righteous pursuers or seekers of the truth. I do not mask my face or screen my doings of each day. I have not yet been banished from this earth, and though nearly every soul I've closely known has come to some dread or grave misfortune, I instead persist, with warmth and privilege accruing to me unabated, ever securing my good station here, the last place I will belong. For some, the past is a place of misery and deep regret. It prowls within the subconscious, preying not only on emotions, but our very identities. Those memories have become a point to run from, to escape, forget, and bury deep within, never to revisit. But by avoiding such thoughts, we actually allow them to define us. Today we're going to face such a dilemma of a troublesome past by opening the metaphorical door into the subconscious of Doc Hata, an ideal citizen of the small town Bedley Run, and reveal his repressed history in rae-lee's A Gesture Life. I'm your host, Zack. Now please, sit back and enjoy today's edition of Lit Tips. At first glance, Franklin Hata, who goes by Doc, seems as if he is untroubled by life. A naturalized Japanese man of Korean descent, Doc Hata came to America sometime after World War II and settled in the small affluent town of Bedley Run. Doc Hata is a pillar of his community, where he ran a medical supply store called Sunny Medical Supply, named after his adopted Korean daughter. But unfortunately for Doc Hata, he had a falling out with Sunny and hadn't spoken to her in years. But this detail is only a symptom of a much greater neurosis that has plagued the medical supplies shopkeeper. Now retired, citizens of Bedley Run embrace Hata as the humble and respectable man who is known for swimming laps in his pool and tending his garden. The life of Doc Hata seems completely ordinary, albeit removed, until one day he sustains minor injuries in an accidental fire. This event is enough to trigger a series of past personal failings that overcome him. This manner of stimulating a memory is reminiscent of Marcel Proust and his work In Search of Lost Time, otherwise known as Remembrance of Things Past. In the first volume of the novel Swan's Way, while the narrator tastes the lemon cake known as a Madeleine with linden tea, he's mentally transported to a time in his youth where he enjoyed the same treat at his aunt's house. In doing so, he relives an involuntary memory triggered by the sense of taste. According to Literary Expression of the Unconscious by Stephen Hobbes, Proust's anxiety stemmed from what he termed involuntary memory. Through sensory response to an object or smell, he was often helplessly transported to the memories of his childhood, memories that, in the eclipsing shadow of his mother's death in 1905, he was desperate to reclaim. But where Proust sought out the past as a hallowed place to try and reclaim, Doc Hata's memories of his own youth seem latent and abandoned. Such memories have escaped the inner workings of his mind, leading to a more critical examination of the self. Upon lifting the veil of Hata's subconscious, a torrent of reflections recontextualized the mild-mannered man who we thought we knew. But before we explore the past, we must understand the present. As a retiree, Doc Hata exists in a place of habit, but without the responsibility of tending his store, he's left with an abundance of time. This presents an ideal setting for self-reflection. And like ghosts, he's haunted by episodes of his past, some where he failed to act and others where his actions have reaped a particular form of horror. This indecisiveness of action is exposed in a few ways. First is through the tryst with widow Mary Burns, a neighbor of his who he dated when Sunny was just a girl. As a budding relationship grew more promising, Sunny's disapproval of Mary eventually soured the whole affair. This is partly due to Mary's own criticism of how Doc Hata was raising Sunny. rae-lee's unraveling of the plot is careful to never reveal too much information. Through his cautious pen, Lee leaves you wanting to turn the page to learn more about his protagonist and his dilemma. When Doc Hata is in the hospital recovering from his wounds, he's visited by the daughter of Officer Como. This association brings him back to Sunny and her troubled past. More specifically, how Sunny rejected the authority of Officer Como. Sunny's troubled youth is largely a result of her relationship with Doc Hata, an adoptee himself Korean born with Japanese step-parents, he sought to adopt a young Korean girl, even going so far as to bribe an adoption official to ensure this. Sunny arrives when she is just 7 years old. However, when Doc Hata first meets her, he feels the same reservations he once felt himself regarding his own step-parents. Not to mention, Sunny was uprooted from Japan, where she was already assimilating to its culture and way of life. So unlike Hata, who perfectly adjusted to the United States and its norms, Sunny felt like an outsider in both her new home and country. Doc Hata's use of bribery to serve his personal desires came at the expense of Sunny and her development. Hata considers Sunny's rebellious nature. Was it innate, or entirely the result of his parenting? As a passive parent, he lacked healthy communication with his daughter. When she finally ran away from home, he placed all responsibility on Sunny herself. But after 13 years, the reality of his inaction had become more evident. His failure to provide emotional comfort for Sunny fed her resolve to seek a life elsewhere. This unfortunate ordeal, however, only leads to yet another flashback, back to the Second World War, where Doc Hata served as a medic for the Japanese Imperial Army. His duties involved examining comfort women. These were girls and women abducted and forced into sex slavery by the Japanese military for men in the battalion. A young Doc Hata falls in love with one of the sex slaves, a Korean like him who goes by the name of Kei. At the time of the war, Doc Hata is known as Lieutenant Hata. It is his superior officer, Captain Ono, who shows special interest in Kei and orders Hata to keep her away from the comfort house and inform everyone that she's sick. He does so by draping a black flag on her door. Interestingly enough, Hata means black flag in Japanese. During this time, since they both share the Korean language, Kei and Hata enjoy long talks where Hata learns how Kei comes from a prestigious family. Hata becomes increasingly infatuated by Kei, and one day forces himself on her without her consent. Later, when Captain Ono informs Hata that he will be having sex with Kei, he's devastated. He tells Kei, then goes on to muse about them fleeing and starting a new life. But she rebuffs him and his naive fantasies for them after the war. She begs him to kill her, but he refuses. When Captain Ono shows up, Kei stabs him in the neck with a knife, killing him. Again, she begs Hata to kill her, but instead he takes Ono's pistol and shoots his corpse, making his death appear as an accident. After this event, it is implied that Kei died, most likely by her own hand. Kei manifests as a phantom within Doc Hata's house in Bedley Run. On the exterior, Hata buried her along with his time serving in the Imperial Army, well within his past. However, within the interior of his being, Kei held a significant impact on his life. From his adoption of Sunny to his failed romantic relationships, and ultimately, the projection of himself to the world, living in gestures as a means to rectify his past. In many ways, the history of comfort women used by Imperial Japanese forces is still inadequately recognized by Japan. Apologies have been issued in the past with minor compensation. In 2014, the Chief Cabinet Secretary, Yoshihide Suga, stated that the Japanese government was reconsidering their apology. Just 7 years earlier, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said that there was no evidence that the Japanese government had kept sex slaves, despite the government admitting that they had in 1993. To this, Kei's response to Doc Hata's declaration that he will protect her seems to ring out in prophetic proportions. Do you think if any of us girls is still living, they'll let us walk out of here when the war ends? That we will go unharmed if they do? In my mind, I didn't give the doctor my life. All he really wanted was a last small concession from me. What was left of my will. So he has that. But the doctor has always had my life and my death. Perhaps now, Lieutenant, he has yours too. We hope that you enjoyed this edition of Lit Tips. As always, hit that like button if you like what we're doing. Subscribe for more videos on literature from your favorites to the plain obscure. Hit that bell if you want to be notified when videos drop. And leave a comment with your thoughts on this video, along with suggestions for any books or authors you would like us to cover in future episodes. Until next time, keep reading.